out of 31 Days of Halloween Prompt Challenge by Dragongoddess13. Day 7, Wolfstar. I'm going to count to 5, give you a head start. You have until sunset to escape. Sirius' last memory was hazy. He'd parked his bike outside his flat. It was late and he'd returned from babysitting Harry while James and Lily went out to blow off some steam. Truth be told, they could all use the chance to blow off steam at this point, a chance to distract themselves from what they had lost. It had been 6 months since any of them had seen or heard from Remus, not since they found his flat broken into. There had clearly been a struggle, and the scratches and claw marks in the walls and furniture told them it had been werewolves. Knowing Remus' history, there was no doubt in any of their minds that it was Greyback who had taken him. That being said, it didn't make it any easier to find him. Greyback had been wanted for years and had eluded capture, cutting down anyone who caught up with him. There was very little hope among the Auras that they would find him or Remus, if he was being held prisoner. Sirius made it to the front door of his building before he realized he wasn't alone. He'd barely been able to turn when he felt a stinging axe hit him between the shoulder blades, sending him to the ground as the darkness surrounded him. When Sirius regained consciousness, he was cold, the air damp and hollow. He was inside a dark, cold place that reeked of decay and mold. A cave, perhaps, he wasn't sure. It was too dark to see. And then he was sure it was a cave, because all of a sudden it wasn't too dark to see. Greyback, Sirius sneered, blinking the spots from his eyes. Greyback grinned, his fangs glowing in the light of the bluebell orb. "Where's Remus, you son of a bitch?" he lashed out, trying to lunge at the Alpha, only to be thrown back against the stone wall behind him. "Calm down, lunch meat," Greyback growled. "I brought you here to reunite you with your little friend." His grin was sinister now, and Sirius had no doubt this reunion would be anything but happy. "What did you do to him?" "Nothing, really. I just thought it was time to remind the pup where he belongs. He put up quite the fight, too. But like all my pups, he's learned his place." Even his chuckle was sinister. "And now that he's in his place, he's going to do what all of my pack has done." The stinging axe hit him in the chest this time, knocking the breath from his lungs. The next thing he knew, he was being carried out of the cave, his vision swimming as his body was moved carelessly about. Within a few minutes, Sirius was gracelessly dropped to the ground, landing on compacted dirt and torn-up grass. When Sirius regained his bearings, he sat up, only to find Greyback standing over him. He wasn't alone this time, and Sirius felt the pang of relief in his chest as he spotted Remus. It was all short-lived, however, as he fully took in his physical state. His clothes were more wrecked than usual, and his normally lanky figure was now lithe, muscular. His skin was flushed with color, his scars standing out on his exposed skin like badges of honor. He was more healthy now than Sirius had ever seen him. He expected Remus to be bruised and broken, but he looked better than they had ever hoped he would, like he'd finally made peace with his wolf in a way he had been unable to do with them. "I'm going to count to 5. Give you a head start." Greyback spoke up, drawing Sirius from his observations. "You have until sunset to escape." Sirius looked confused. "Tradition in my pack minutes that the new packmates hunt their former loved ones. An initiation of sorts. You have until sunset to escape him and live. If you don't, well, that's up to the pup here." "And what happens to Remus if I escape?" Sirius asked. Greyback grinned. "I don't tolerate failure." Remus stepped up then, his eyes no longer their normal shade of green, but instead the amber gold they had come to know as Mooney's eyes. This was not the boy he'd grown up with, the man he'd secretly harbored feelings for since they were 15. This was the animal underneath, the beast that lurked just below the surface. Sirius knew he had no hope of talking him down, and so he scrambled to his feet, ignoring how undignified he probably looked and took off for the tree line in the distance. The full moon wasn't for another 2 weeks, so Remus was and would remain in human form. That, of course, didn't make him any less dangerous. With his wolf clearly closer to the surface than before he disappeared, he was stronger, faster, and more aware of his surroundings. Sirius was going to have a hell of a time escaping with all his pieces intact. That is, if he even wanted to escape. He didn't want to think about what would happen to Remus if he did manage to get away. Greyback wasn't known for his mercy, and Sirius was hard-pressed to leave Remus there. Maybe alone in the woods he'd be able to talk to Remus, reason with Moony. An hour later, Sirius was discovering how difficult the plan was. He'd gotten close to Moony all of one time and regretted it instantly. Now hunkered down in a hollow tree between tree roots, Sirius considered with startling clarity exactly what Moony wanted. Sirius had acknowledged his feelings for Remus when they were 16, but he said nothing. They were friends first, and he wasn't about to jeopardize that for what may only have been a simple crush. Of course, as time wore on and his feelings refused to wane, it became obvious that it was not. He was convinced, however, that he'd taken too long to realize it, waited too long to say anything, and he'd missed his chance. But Moony's own reaction to him could prove that he wasn't too late, and if he was careful, he could use that to save Remus. "You can't hide from me, little Grim." Moony's voice rough with a feral nature, yet all Remus underneath, purred in his ear, and Sirius froze, his mind going blank as panic set in. When had he gotten that close? "My human wants you. He has for quite some time." His warm breath ghosted over the back of Sirius' neck. "I could smell it on you during those full moons when you were still pups. You want him too." Sirius tensed as Moony took hold of his arms, pulling him back against his chest. Moony whispered, his voice rumbling in his chest and threw Sirius back, and Sirius found himself obeying against his will. He could feel Moony moving closer, his breath against the side of his neck at this time. "Just relax, little Grim. Soon it'll be all over, and you'll be with your precious Remus forever." The end. Thank you for listening to 31 Days of Halloween Prompt Challenge, Day 7 by Dragongoddess13. Stay tuned for more spooky content.